I want to go back to now some things that you have seen in the paper. And I want to show you this, America, because this is practical application. This is stuff that is changing. And because of what is called, growing legal consensus, which our Supreme Court is now recognizing, not the Constitution. Yeah. What does the rest of the world say? Yep. And that's how we make our laws. Listen to some of these stories.
Going back to that paradigm where that in a secular religious view, man is at the bottom and planet's at the top, everything else is above man. Here's a great article right there. That article is out of Nature magazine.
Reason magazine.
Reason magazine. How dare you install chlorophyll kind? And it says that Nature News is reporting the Swiss government's Ethics Committee on Non-Human Biotechnology has issued guidelines instructing researchers how to avoid offending the dignity of plants. If their projects are ruled as affront to plants, their funding will be pulled.
Really?
I don't think we do that for people.
Dignity of plants.
You can't offend the dignity of plants, because plants, of course, are higher on the grid than people are.
In all fairness here, and this is one of the things that we were talking about during those evil capitalistic commercials that make this program possible, it talks about how hybrids are bad, and especially the hybrids that make the plant go sterile. You know, I'm sorry, but there's no Viagra for plants. I happen to agree with this one because I don't want, but for a different reason.
Yeah, that's right.
I think these hybrids are both good and bad. And when you make them go sterile, which you have to do because Dow has to, they have to maintain their patent. Yeah. So they have to have you continue to buy the corn. That way they have the money to be able to feed the world. But unfortunately, when we make all of our corn, let's say, go sterile, if Dow goes under, if something happens, we don't have natural corn anymore. Yeah. And it gives power to feed the world to a select number, whoever holds that patent, and that's very dangerous.
But here's the difference, Glenn. Your argument says, I don't want to do that because it may have dangerous consequences for humanity.
Because
the new Swiss Constitution says we don't want to do that because it might insult the integrity of the corn or of the wheat. And I haven't yet figured out, you know, so far no stalk of corn, no stalk of wheat has ever said to me, that was insulting. I'm offended.
May I tell you something?
I don't know what
May I tell you something? If there aren't already, and I bet you guys know, if there aren't already, there will be attorneys for plants.
Oh, absolutely. There already are. And of course, if you are a pantheist, then you think that you and the rest of the universe are all the same thing anyway. So your mind and the mind of the plants, you know, they're all the same thing, which may be accurate with some of these greenies.
And tell me, America, that we don't need to learn correct principles and restore common sense back into her place. Tell me that you can just unplug and don't worry about it. Oh, it's always been like this. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. At least not in the last couple hundred years here on this continent. Back in a minute. All right, we're back with Cal Beisner, and he's from the Cornwall Alliance, and David Barton of Wall Builders. All right, I want to spend one more segment here on what's being done. This is the Story of Stuff Green Faith Project. And it's going into your churches and your synagogues. Watch for it carefully. Some of it sounds great. Some of it is, you know, it's truth mixed with evil stuff, to be real frank with you. I want to spend a break here talking about how scientists see the world differently than those who believe in God and what it leads to. Yeah. And then when we come back, I want to give you action plan. What do you do about it? What do you do? Go ahead.
Well, one of the things with scientists, I was called to the U.S. Senate to testify on global warming. I'm one of the experts on that kind of stuff.
All right.
So in that, I can look at scientific data and reach a totally different conclusion than other guys can. We look at the same piece of data, and a lot of it is explained right here. The clash between religion and science. Only 9.7% of scientists actually is convinced there's a God. And that's exactly opposite for the American population. So they come up with a piece of data. Their philosophy says, oh, there's no God, so it can't involve that. So they come up with an interpretation of data. I can look at the same data, come up with a different interpretation because I got a different paradigm on it. And that's why, and going back to this grid work where that the earth is supreme in their view and man is the least important, as we were talking about the thing, because at that time you have the Kyoto Protocol they're trying to adopt in the Senate, and they went to Copenhagen to reaffirm that. and basically a 40-year plan. And what they're saying is we need to spend $200 billion a year in America, and that'll prepare us for the protocol. And we said, you know, for $200 billion a year, you can buy clean water in every third world nation in the world and save tens of millions of lives from dysentery. They said, no, we care about lives. We got to save the planet. So for the same amount of money, we can save millions of lives.
This environmental movement is really anti-human in many ways, really anti-human. Because if you look at that scale, if man is down at the bottom, all you see is man hurting things. Man is always responsible for awful things, now including hurricanes.
Yeah. Well, it's apparent. I mean, ask Michael Vick what happens if you fight with dogs. He'll go to jail. But then do something with, as Cal said, where we have babies who live through an abortion and are alive, and they will.
Oh, I know. And they're put into a room.
We won't do
Chicago
anything
Hospital.
with exactly. Yeah. We won't do anything with them. But you fight dogs, and we'll throw you in jail.
In a religious hospital. That happened.
Yeah,
in a religious hospital. And whose religious hospital? Jeremiah Wright's religious hospital.
But that's that secular religious paradigm,
right.
And what they want us to do is live in fear. Their viewpoint says, oh my gosh, you're creating everything, you're messing everything up, you've got to curtail yourself. Our religious viewpoint gives us confidence. We said, no, that's not the way we live.
Right, but we are, again, I want to make sure it's clear, at least I believe, that we do screw things up.
We do.
But we get, I believe in Jefferson, man will get it right.
That's right.
We're very good at solving problems.
That's right.
Yes.
We make mistakes, but then we can later solve them. Let me give you one concrete example of how a scientist's religious faith led him to interpret data in a very different way from the unbelievers. Dr. Roy Spencer is a climatologist, senior research scientist at the University of Alabama, good friend of mine as well. You know him.
Yep.
Roy has been not only in charge of NASA's satellite remote temperature sensing program, but he's also been specializing in cloud research for some 20 years and more. And he believes that God designed the climate system to be robust, self-regulating, self-correcting, the exact opposite of the assumption behind the atheists who think that it all was the result of chance, and therefore it's fragile and it'll be knocked into catastrophe by nothing.
That's right.
As he looked at the data, he thought to himself, I wonder if the assumption that clouds are a positive feedback on warming. In other words, if you get a little warming down at the Earth's surface, the clouds make even more warming.
Right.
And that assumption drives all of the catastrophe ideas of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and so on. I wonder if we might be able to see that clouds do something different if I look at the data differently. That's what he did in a number of different experiments, and he found that, in fact, clouds are a negative feedback. That is, you get a little warming on the surface, clouds respond to reduce that warming instead of increasing it. So instead of getting a runaway feedback effect that leads to a tipping point and catastrophe, you get a self-regulating, it's like the thermostat in your home.
It's really an amazing thing. And you never heard that, ever. Heard that in the news or, God forbid, in our classes.
But that's because these guys are not religious.
Praise God for that.
Yeah. Okay, back in just a second on what you can do, what you should do, coming up. There is a real effort in our churches, in our country, in our classrooms, everything, to change truth. I've been getting attacked, as these gentlemen have been for years. I've been getting attacked in the last year, in particular, on coming out against social justice. Social justice, as it is explained and understood by progressives, is collective salvation. It's evil. It's just awful, awful. And I told you, no, find out exactly what your church is teaching and why they're teaching it, and what are the roots of it. Where is this? If social justice is, hey, go out and serve, serve your fellow man, you personally make the choice to serve your fellow man, to serve God, it's great. But that's usually not what what it means. Now this is in your churches, and this is from the Tides Foundation. It is the story of stuff, let there be stuff, except this is all about God and not just how evil capitalism is and how evil America is. This is how evil we are because we're destroying God's creation. Look for it in your churches and your synagogues because it's now being pushed. If you find it, what do you do?
Well, for one thing, we have an alternative. We have the Cornwall Alliance has just released 12 lecture DVD series called Resisting the Green Dragon that examines the worldview, the theology, the ethics, the politics, the economics, the science, the history, everything about the environmentalist movement and how it is intentionally infiltrating churches and intentionally targeting especially children.
Yes.
And we show people what is a truly biblical understanding of this stuff at the same time that we're showing what are the problems in this movement.
Where do you get it?
ResistingTheGreenDragon.com.
Okay. The time for you to sit on the couch or the time for you to say, oh, that's not the big, it's over.
Yeah.
And I really believe, David, correct me if I'm wrong, that religions, faiths will lose as many people as they will gain. There's going to be a changing of chairs, I think. People who have been just, doing the easy thing in religion, once our religions start to stand up for liberties, you're going to have people say, oh, what? And they're going to leave. We're going to lose members of our faith, but we will gain more than we lose. Do you agree?
I agree.
Absolutely.
And that was the American Revolution. If you remember the first prayer in Congress, that famous picture, Reverend Jacob Duché prayed that prayer, and boy, he prayed a fire-belching prayer about the British. Yeah. 2 years later, we've lost several battles, and he becomes a British traitor. He says, Washington, I think you guys are losing. I'm out. He was chaplain of Congress at the time, and he leaves and goes to Great Britain, and he says, I can't take the pressure. There's too much. It doesn't look good. Well, we end up winning, and now he's got to come back. I mean, he had to eat crow coming back, had to ask Washington's forgiveness and apology, and that's where the church is right now.
So here's the thing, America. You have to know what you believe. You have to know what is true. And what the most important thing in this is they say you have to start gathering in groups. You have to start, it is ACORN. It is organizing for America, or whatever you want to call it, in our churches.
That's right.
We must come together. It's why, David, we started the Black Robe Regiment.
That's right.
Because we must start coming together. People of faith must root out the lies and stand together in the truth. Final thoughts in a minute. I want my good friend David Barton to leave you with an amazing thought from nature, from the planet. Here it is.
One of the important things about traps, and environmentalists lay traps, want us to fall in their traps so they can catch us, is traps only work if you don't know what they look like. I live in the country. I can catch skunks because they don't know what a trap looks like. If they ever figure out what a trap is, I'll never catch another skunk.
Right.
For us, we have to recognize their paradigm, that if they're trying to make man subjective to the planet or animals or anything else, we go, oh, that's a trap. And as soon as we recognize that man's being moved down the chain, we recognize it, walk away.
That is how you defend yourself. Look for the traps, learn what they look like. From Los Angeles, good night, America.